Sarvopanishad Gavo Dogda Gopalanandana Parthavatsa Sudhir Bhokta Dugdam Gitamritam Maha. All the Upanishads are likened to a cow. The cowherd boy Gopala is the milker. Partha, Arjuna, is the calf. People of purified intellect are the drinkers of the milk, and the milk is the supreme nectar called the Bhagavad Gita. We take today the 51st verse of the second chapter of the path of knowledge, the yoga of knowledge. In these few verses, we have the state of enlightenment described, or the state of enlightenment which is approaching the absolute enlightenment. So these are kind of internal verities which we may not be able to grasp, but then we get a general idea of what exactly is enlightenment. And then Arjuna asks specifically, what are the characteristics of this enlightenment? So the 51st verse is, Karmajam buddhi yuktahe phalam tyaktva manishinaha janma bandha vinirmukta padam gacchantya. Because those who are devoted to wisdom, they, becoming persons of enlightenment by giving up the fruits produced by actions, reach the state beyond evils by having become freed from the bondage of birth. The translation is more or less, you can say, appropriate, but not very specific. Shankar and the commentator, Shankaracharya, he first says that the words born from karma and that which arises from karma should be connected with those fruits have to be renounced. Whatever is born from karma has to be renounced. We were speaking about the enlightened, you can say, intellect, or rather, this year it's translated as devoted to wisdom. And we have seen how this can come about by equanimity. We are steady in both praise and blame and good and bad, and when the mind attains a kind of a stability. That stability, as Sri Krishna says, it's called yoga. Yoga karmasha kaushalam. That is yoga. The mind is no longer buffeted by these waves of duality. And so here he says, that person who is endowed, who is joined together with that intelligence. Well, what kind of intelligence? That which discerns between the right and the wrong, the good and the bad, and one which has become stabilized. how do you stabilize the mind? How do you stabilize the intellect? Well, through the thoughts of the Supreme Self. It's only then can you stabilize the mind. Otherwise, it will always be tossed about thousands of things. So here, what actually happens in the mind? What happens is, there are some philosophies that say that the intellect is a repository of the fruits of actions, that's the impressions of actions, done previously, as well as in this birth also. And what does it make us? This intelligence of ours, which is so great, is confined to my world. My body is my world, and I should be able to look after this. I should be able to protect it, and I should fight for my turf. This is mine, that is yours. And anything that is disagreeable to me, my intellect immediately becomes awake, and I start giving spurious arguments why it shouldn't be there, why I need to be dominant in everything. So when this intellect of ours, which is already tainted by the impressions of our actions, it is going to be molded by those impressions. Naturally, if you kind of cover a nice, clean mirror with all the grime and the dust and the dirt and everything, it's going to, well, you won't even know that it's a mirror after some time. That's what actually happens. But when this person has taken recourse to the yoga of equanimity, when that person does work in a kind of, in a skillful way, yoga karmashu kaushalam, that intelligence of ours becomes free from all the dirt, which the Lord will speak about it a little later. So who are these people? One whose intellect is become freed from the various impressions that are kind of clamoring to climb up the intellect. Well, these are the wise ones. The word used is manishina. That is, people of enlightenment. Actually, the word itself is one who has control over one's mind is called a manish. Man is mind, Isha is that which is the Lord of the mind. And this person has got his mind. So when we understand what is spirituality, one's mind has to be placid, calm, quiet. Only then the reflection of consciousness dawns in that intellect. Otherwise, it's always joined and enmeshed in the little self of mine and this little world of mine. That's why you find the so-called so intelligent people sometimes like they talk like fools. It's so immature. You feel, what happened to these people? With all their knowledge, they're talking like children, prattling. I want this, I want that, and aha. So those who are devoted to wisdom, those who are joined to wisdom, that intellect which has become freed from all the kind of the dirt of all these impressions, when it becomes free, then wisdom dawns in that part of the mind. Then becoming people of enlightenment, Manishina, then what happens is, they give up all whatever fruits or the results of work that they have done. Because what happens is, we always have a kind of expectation. We do something and there's an expectation. Well, that expectation binds us. These people, once they give up these expectations, they keep on working without the idea of expectations. So it's like they say, like water on the lotus leaf. Well, the lotus leaf and the lotus is in the water, but the water does not wet it. And as a result, what happens? These people, they reach the state beyond this small intellect. It's saying, reach the state beyond evils. Actually, the word evils is a kind of a little harsh. Padam gachanti anamayam, that is, they reach the state, the supreme state of Vishnu. Tad Vishnu paramam padam. What is the state of Vishnu? Vyapanat Vishnu, that is all pervading Vishnu. That state which is beyond relative existence. And that is the goal. And when they attain that, you can say, state of absolute existence or absolute consciousness, they become freed from the bondage of birth. Janma bandha vinirmukta. They vinirmukta, they become free from the bondages of birth and the attendant modifications, growth and old age and there. They become free. So what happens is, they have arisen from the body to that which is bodiless. Through what? Through that intelligence. Sri Ramakrishna just says, well, the crow thinks it's very clever. But you know what the crow eats? So people think they're very clever, and you know what they do. So that is intelligence which orients one towards God. That is intelligence. That intelligence which orients it to the world is bondage. Simple. So this, imbued with this equanimity, when the mind is equanimous, when the intellect is steady, then knowledge flashes. Do you have to acquire knowledge separately? No. This is just a kind of preliminary practice that you try to make this mind calm. What buffets the mind? Well, all the things that we do buffet the mind. And that's why we must be able to discern what is right and what is wrong. That is what is actually the buddhi, the intellect. Sri Ramakrishna gives another example. Such a intellect is like a kind of anvil on which you can hammer out other forms of iron or whatever, and that anvil remains unshaken. That is the, we can say, illustration given. That person remains unshakable even under the heaviest of afflictions. If you can say, yes, I belong to God, I am God's child, I am a part of God, that intelligence now is getting that kind of steadiness. And it's a process, that's a purification. So all these things that have covered the intelligence of ours. The body, the senses, the mind, and the ego, all these things have to be dispensed with. The intelligence shines by itself. So those who are joined to or devoted to wisdom, they become enlightened. And that is what we must understand. This world is a mixture, as Sri Ramakrishna says, of both sugar mixed with sand. Yes. And we must be able to separate the two. And can this be done? Yes, it's a kind of little tedious process. But once you get a hang of it, you'll go quickly. So you will know how to detect what is true. Because what happens, something that's false appears to our minds as true. Everybody says, these kind of Satan or the devil has a kind of a hideous face. No, actually it doesn't. It has a very beautiful face. Angelic. And it comes to you and you get enamored. Oh yeah, it is, here it is. This is good. And there you're caught. So that which you encounter some difficulty, you should know that this will lead you to truth. If the road is nice and sweet and easy and wide, be careful. It's going to lead you to you know where. So this intelligence of ours, in Indian philosophy, it's called the inner instrument. Like we have this body, this is an instrument. We have the sensory system, it's an instrument. We have the motor organs, they are instruments. And we have then something internal. We have the internal instrument. Yeah, these are external. And then we have an internal instrument. What is that? It's the mind, intellect, memory, and the sense of self, identity. These are the inner instruments. Whose inner instruments? Of the individual soul. Through that, this individual soul experiences this external world. And then, this world, you see, this body itself is a result of both good and bad karma. So, when we are born, there's something called the original sin. There's something called original sin. Yeah. Adam and Eve, they created that mess out there. and we have to suffer the consequences. Okay. They have some degree of kind of truth. Because our bodies have got both the types of karma, the good and bad. And that's why we are born as human beings. So here we are, this intellect itself is a result of both good and bad. Now you've got to free that intellect of yours. It has to become detached. How do you be detached? We've seen in the previous two verses that one has to work yet be detached. Well, how do you work and be detached? The sense of the self has to be, subordinated to the higher self. This is the Lord's work. And then it becomes very easy. Oh, if that's the Lord's work, then I don't have any kind of, authority. Oh, this is my possession. No, it belongs to the Lord. That kind of frees you. As the commentator says, that your work will be done as an offering. Ishvara arpane buddhya. the idea that this work is an offering to the Lord, and I work for the Lord. I go to please the Lord. That's it. And as I keep on doing this, my intelligence will become freed. Well, it doesn't matter if good or bad comes, I'm free from this. And so the mind attains that kind of equanimity. And the moment this equanimity dawns, the mind then is not buffeted. The intellect is still. The illustration later on will be given like a flame in a windless place. That intellect becomes steady. That is, say, it's a supreme state. When the mind has become perfectly still, where the wind of desires and expectations and the self, the small self, have all been vanished, then the mind becomes steady, the intellect becomes steady. That is the supreme state. This is what it is. That person has undergone a long trial of working with the idea of dedicating the fruits of his work to God. And the person becomes the master of his own mind. That's important. When we try to do something, when we try to meditate or something like that, how do we meditate? The intellect is the controlling factor there. The mind is kind of heaving with all these kinds of thoughts and emotions and all these old things. But the controlling power is the intellect. That's the cerebral cortex there is has got a kind of a controlling power over all other instinctive drives and a limbic system and all these things. Yes, it is actually. So this is, you gain mastery of your own mind. Your intellect becomes bright and shining. It becomes steady. As you master the mind, what happens is you attain enlightenment. Now, does it come from somewhere? No, that very enlightenment is embedded in that intelligence. It does not come from somewhere. Oh, I've got to acquire it. I need to go to that shopping mall. No, you can't. Probably I can go to that temple or that church or this synagogue. No. You can't acquire it from outside. The very nature of that intelligence itself is enlightenment, and we have been mistaken, led by the whole lot of things that we need to discard. And we do that through maturity. Many things that we held when we were young, we used to, I'll do this, I'll be that, and I can acquire that. And after a few blows from the world, I said, no, I'm fine, I'm okay. I don't need to run about like a madman. And then I keep quiet. So we do kind of give up things through experience. And we have experienced certain things that have led us to more misery. Or give it up. Give up those stupid ideals. And slowly your intelligence becomes freed. And then you attain that supreme state of Vishnu. That is not the personal God, the state of absolute all-pervading reality. Where is that all-pervading absolute reality? It's here. You don't need to go to some other place. We like to go to that place or that place. No. It's here. It is in that very intelligence. Flashes there. So that person becomes free from the bondage. This is the kind of a extra word, because that person has to be told what will happen. If you take all this trouble, you perform all these things, what do you get? Well, this is what you get. You become liberated. No more do you need to work up a body for, you can see, working out some of our desires. Because if you have a desire, any desire, small or big, whatever, you need a body to experience it. So you create a body, and then slowly, then after you see, oh, that kind of thing, I was pretty stupid about it. It never worked for me. Okay. And now, but now you've got a body now, what do? You simply just cannot discard it. Oh, that. Yeah. So it will run its course, and as it runs its course, you emerge out, that is through wisdom. How do you emerge out? You become detached from this body. The moment you become detached from the body, you become detached from the world. And then what? You're left in a vacuum? No. You attain a higher reality, which is free from all the silly, stupid things that life has presented us. So the next verse is, Yada te moha kalilam buddhir vyatitarishyati tada gantasi nirvedam shrotavyasya shrutasya cha. Well, it's kind of in a similar strain. When your intelligence will go beyond the turbidity of delusion, it's turbid. The mind is turbid with hundreds of things. Then you will acquire dispassion for what has to be heard and what has been heard. It's a kind of it means whatever you have heard, that means whatever you have seen and sensed and tasted and touched, it covers all the senses. And in the old days, you had to hear the Vedas. That's why it was called Shruti, that which is heard. You learn the Vedas by hearing it, memorizing it, transmitting it to the next generation. That's what it's called. And the Vedas are huge and vast, and they have sometimes different ideals given to different people. So you might get muddied. Well, it's a Vedic statement, yes, but the higher Vedic statement says, give up all the lower ideals. So, whatever you have heard and whatever has to be heard in the future, that also. Bothered. Why? So, would you like to go to the Universal Studios? Well, not really kind of interested. Well, it doesn't matter. Do you really want to go? It's not important. You kind of are neutral. You neither like nor dislike. Oh, I have to see this, I have to do this, I've got to. Oh no. When this will come? When your intelligence will overcome the turbidity of delusion. What is the delusion? Our non-discernment between what is right and wrong. And all that, you see what happens? The mind itself is a kind of a pure thing, entity. And we have thrown in things in that nice clear pool of water over and over and over again. and the whole water has become muddied. We are not letting it settle down. It's constantly being, you can say, in a wave form. So, when the intelligence rises beyond the turbidity of all these delusions, I would like to do this, I would like to change this. There was a young guy who was telling me, I like to change this and I like to change that and change this and change that. I want to do this properly and that properly. I said, better people than you have come, and millions of such people have come for thousands of years, but the world is the same. It's a dog's curly tail. You straighten it, it's going to curl back. You straighten it once more, it's going to curl back. And that's what it is. So we will do this, we will do that. Yeah, keep on. After a while you keep on doing. How much of power through work do we have? Very little. We get exhausted. Oh, let me have a glass of water. I am hungry, I am tired, I feel sleepy. Is this your capacity to work? Limited. And you are going to change the world. Oh yes. All the best. They have been great conquerors and emperors, and they thought, we will do this and we will do that. And they came and slaughtered and killed and burnt, and what happened? The world is the same. A few killed people, they all vanished, these great conquerors, and the world goes on in its own way. It does not bother about these guys coming up and doing all these things. So, all these types of delusions. Yes, don't they know I am so great? When I walk down the street, nobody looks at me. Well, who's going to look at you? What's so special about you that people need to look at you? And even if they look at you, what do you get? Nothing. They might criticize you. Stupid. So all these kind of delusional ideas about ourselves, about the world, about God, about this and that, all have been transcended. So that's why he's saying, when the intelligence will go beyond the turbidity of delusion, it will transcend. Vyatitarishati, it will transcend. It will go beyond. No longer you will be, you can say, buffeted by all these kind of small things. You will stand still, calm, wise. You know yourself as a part of the Supreme Self. Nothing is going to shake you. Then later on they will say, even the heaviest afflictions will not be able to shake you, will not be able to fragment you. You will be there, still, steady. That is intelligence. That is what I said, like Sri Ramakrishna said, that kutastha buddhi, that intelligence which is unshakable. You can bring other things and wrought iron and make those things out there. Hammer them. But that anvil will remain steady, your intellect will remain steady. This is the state of enlightenment. And then he says, tada gantasi nirvedham. Then you will have a kind of a dispassion. Nirveda, dispassion. You will attain the state of dispassion. What is dispassion? Like in the Upanishad is saying, if you want to know that truth, go to the Guru with the sacrificial faggots in your hand. That is the symbolic way that I am come here to serve. What do you serve? The Guru? No. you're going to serve truth. That's what it symbolizes. Yeah, the Guru embodies that truth. And that Guru will teach you that Vijnartam in order to know that. And how does that person approach? That person has had enough of all the things. He's saying, the nastya krita kritin, that is, that which is beyond all work, beyond a subject-object duality, can never be attained through work, however refined it is. So what does it do? When you pray or meditate or work for the Lord, our minds become purified. That is the great advantage. So as the mind becomes purified, then it's automatically that intellect rises. It's like, that iceberg slowly rising from the sea. It goes higher and higher and wow, it's a big mountain, yeah. So this is what all that ocean with its waves and with its, you can see, dark color is left out. So then he's saying, you will attain that kind of dispassion. Oh, I've seen it all. Many people say, I was so and so in my previous birth, and then in that previous birth I was like that and this and that. So I said, yes, this knowledge is really good. But there is one indication whether this knowledge is superficial of yours or is kind of a just imagination. I was this, I was that. Yeah. These kind of, a lot of clinics coming up with this past life regression and this and that and all. They don't know the nature of the mind. The mind kind of tricks you. It'll throw up things and make you believe it. What happens is, if you really know what was your past births or birth, the idea of renunciation will come with like the power of thunder. Yes, I've seen it all. I don't need to see it again. So those stupid mistakes they had done in their previous life, they are still doing it now. Well, that does not speak of real knowledge. It's a kind of a superficial knowledge. You regress and regress and regress and I was a queen of Atlantis. Everybody seemed to be queens in Atlantis. Nobody seems to be commoners. As if in those previous births, they were all of us were queens and kings and rulers and something like that. And Atlantis, for God's sake. So we sometimes, I said, okay, they are exploring, they'll come down to the real thing. It's good to explore, you go back. But if they touch the real thing, there it's over. In fact, Swami Vivekananda said that the renunciation will come like the power of thunder. It will smash away all your delusions. What am I doing here? I was at times the crest of a wave. At times I was down in the dumps. And again I came up and again I went down. This is what it is. And you will inexorably be led towards God. Even if you do not know your previous births, it doesn't even matter. Because those previous births somehow have got a kind, you have an inkling of this. How do you know? I've seen it all. Yes, you will be going towards God. That is the finest and the best indication that this intelligence of ours is getting freed from all the stupid things of the world. Now we want something that's permanent, that is beyond this birth and death. So this enlightened intellect. See, the enlightenment and that intelligence and samadhi and yoga means the same. What is yoga? Samadhi. And how do you attain it? Through that enlightened intellect. And how does that enlightened intellect arise? When you have discarded all the, you can say, dirt and dust that covers it. And how do you do that? By offering everything to God. I am free. Take your dirt and dust, O God. I have nothing to do with it. Yes. Well, the Lord will say, it's not dirt and dust. It was your ego that made a nice thing bad. So that's what. They say, you don't have to worry. So you want to give God your dirt and dust, which has covered your intellect? He will say. The moment you do it, it was only the idea of selfishness. That is the intellect which has now the body as its object, and the body has the world for its object. That's what had clouded our intellect. So, a kind of a screen that has come between me and reality. And as I keep on purifying that intellect, that buddhi, then I can see reality as it is. Yes, that's the reason why most of the prayers in Sanskrit are directed towards give me an enlightened intellect. They do not pray for give me this and give me that. One of the oldest and most pervasive mantra is called the Gayatri mantra. Bhur bhuva swa tat savitur vareniyam bhargo devasya dhimahi dhiyo yonam. May that intellect of mine be awakened. Yes, it's like that sun that illumines the three worlds, all the three worlds. The known world is illumined by the sun. Similarly, that intellect becomes like the sun. It can illumine everything. That was the prayer. And that is the prayer one should, engage in. Oh God, I have a desire to have something special to eat. Why don't you supply it? And the Lord will say, oh, he has a desire. Well, it's okay. That desire becomes stronger, and then that object is drawn to you. It will be drawn. You will get that, what you desire. But you will get that, and that will bind you. Well, you had this pudding? Yeah. Why don't you taste this brownies? They're also good. There you are. Yeah, you're caught. That is what the ego and the mind is extremely powerful in this world. You send up out a desire, it will come back to you. That thing will come back to you. And when you desire to see God, that also will fructify. God will say, yes, this person wants to see me. Well, after a while, not yet ready. Okay. I remember one time when we were studying scriptures in Belur Math, and it was hot and humid, and we never had fans. We are supposed to be monks, future monks, and we got to practice austerities. So they never had any fans and this. And Belur Math, the headquarters, is full of mosquitoes, real bloodsuckers. And we had to use a mosquito curtain, to save ourselves. And You can imagine, now you are enclosed in a mosquito curtain, it's hot, it's humid, and no breeze. You're sweating it out. And then what do you do the whole night? You keep on talking to your other roommates. Hey, so we're talking, I was telling my friend, and we used to keep the door ajar, get a little breeze if it comes, it'll cool things up. Now what if Sri Ramakrishna walks in? What will be our reactions? And, some of the other, my friends are saying, oh, that'll be wonderful. Let's get ourselves a fan. Somebody say, one another say, no, not now, no. I'll tell him, not now. You go away. But why? He said, well, I'm not ready yet. Why? Why are you not ready? I've got things to do. Well, and after years and years and years, I met my friend again. So, yeah, now I'm ready for it. I was so stupid then. So even if you want to see God, yes, get yourself a little ready. Work yourself up a little. Intensify that desire. That Sri Ramakrishna first saw Kali because of the intensity of his desire to see the Divine Mother. Are you real? Why don't you reveal yourself to me? All these great saints, they've seen you. Are you a figment of my imagination? What is this? And he used to weep. So the intensity of his desire kept on increasing, and then the mother appeared to him. Yes. So you have a desire to see God, it will come to you. Yeah, yes, of course. It will come to you. And if it doesn't come to you, it has to come to you. Has to. If your body is falling off, the Lord will appear to you. If not, then he will come before the body falls off. Here I am. You wanted to see me, here I am. And once you see the Lord there, you are liberated. Yes, once we have the idea of the distinction between the permanent and the impermanent, when you see the permanent, there, what happens? We know that there is God. This knowledge is now, is saying, secondary knowledge, a knowledge that we have heard it from, like you have heard it from me, and you've read books and this and that. So many Swamis have said this. Yeah. It's not your own experience. But this is actually the first step towards attaining that first-hand experience. You go through this process, you get a first-hand experience. And then when you see, oh, that is what I was looking for all these years. And now I've got it. But God is not so unkind, you see. We think God is, maybe God has got no ears. We are praying and praying. God does listen to our prayers, and God does answer our prayers. In each and every one, there is a firm conviction inside. Yes, God exists. He's been looking after me. See your whole life from the beginning, and you will find that God has been with me. Yes. You analyze all your experience and you'll find there. Well, God has hidden himself in all those experiences. Then he'll come and reveal, oh, there it is. So here it is. Then your intellect will rise beyond the turbidity of delusion. And then you will acquire a dispassion for what has been heard and what has to be heard. So, yes, I've seen it all. I've seen it here. Here it is. There. So, we take the next one. In fact, I was thinking of completing a few more. But then, this is important because it's a state of enlightenment, as I said. Shrutivi pratipannate yada stasyasi nischala samadhavachala buddhis tada yogamavapsyasi. Here he comes. Then you have, when your mind that had become bewildered by hearing various other things, that mind, that intellect will become unshakable and steadfast in the Supreme Self. Then you will attain yoga that arises from discernment. Yoga is very easy. These people, they want to have these kind of various postures, this LA yoga and this and that, yoga today and all these magazines, they give the various postures and poses and this and that. And those traditional postures of yoga, they have been modified. When I see sometimes people, I'm horrified. What have they done with this? And that is yoga. Well. That's a long way towards yoga. We just started. Don't worry. Keep on. Keep on. Because somewhere we also know it is not the body that's important. It is the mind that's important. You are employing the mind now to control the body for health and wealth and well-being and this and that. It's the mind actually. Everywhere. Sportsmen or athletes, they are. Yes, the instrument called the body has become very fine. They have, you can say, really practiced. But if the mind is distracted, well, the guy, on your marks, set, boom, that guy is thinking of something else, gone. All his 20 years of practice have gone. Why? Because he was distracted. He wasn't concentrated. So even physical sports or any kind of sport, it is the mind that is employed all the time. You do not train your body alone. You train the body as well as the mind. So this is the first step. Yeah, then you keep on. Then you say, I can do things with the mind alone. Why should I do a headstand or a one-leg stand or something like that? Some stand. You start cultivating the mind. And as you keep on cultivating the mind slowly, it will go towards the real yoga. And this is what happens. When you come, you will attain the state of yoga that comes from the discernment. How do you do discernment? Well, one merges one's intellect in the intelligence of God. That is yoga. It's yoke. The word yoke itself is a kind of a derivative of the word yoga. You yoke the small to the large. That's yoga. Another meaning of yoga is concentration. When your intelligence has become so concentrated on what? The object is now not your body or your desires, but on the Supreme Self. Then you become one with it. Like water poured in water. What happens? You get water. Pure water poured in pure water. It remains water. So this intelligence of ours, freed from all the encumbrances and all the, you can say, encrustations, has become free, it's shining. Then it merges in that supreme intelligence. God creates everything through this intelligence. Yes. So that is the object. So we kind of go back. And then he says, the Lord says, when your intelligence that had become bewildered by hearing and seeing and tasting and touching and smelling and this and that, that is your intelligence which had gone in the body. I am so and so. You've identified yourself with the body, with your name, with your religion, with your language, with your this, with your that. Oh, really? Yes, you see? You should have been identified with God. But it's kind of reversing. You've got to reverse the whole process and come back and free your intelligence from this. Then what happens? He's saying, that intelligence of yours will become unshakable and steadfast. It will come. Nothing will shake it. There will be no doubts. Absolutely no doubts. The other verse which is found in the Upanishad, when all the desires that have kind of made a mess of things in your heart, when they are cut asunder, this very mortal will become immortal. This very mortal intelligence will become the immortal intelligence. So this is that unshakable and steadfast. Where? In the self. Yes, what self? Well, that is the reality. It will become shake. I am a part of that reality. I am that reality, the whole of it. I am real. Then will you attain the culmination of yoga. Now, what is yoga? Yes, that is. Yoga is samadhi. Samadhi is, as we said, the intelligence has become so fine, so refined and luminous, and that throws its light over all these things. You see things clearly. Sri Ramakrishna gives the example of when two people are playing chess. They are so involved in that game, but the onlooker will see, oh, that guy, he made a wrong move. A person who is a little detached can see things clearly. When two boxers are hitting it out, battling it out, they are bloodied. The guy who goes to watch, he is not bloodied. He watches the whole thing. He can see where this guy went wrong. So we need to step back from this kind of this turbidity of delusion. Intellect becomes steady, you will attain yoga. We stop here for now. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat Shri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.